one of the things that really struck me with your conversation with David McCraney was uh, kind of the difference between what you teach and classical debate. Like debate seems to
Oh
be
my God.
what people think of as how topics are discussed, how we come up with solutions. Um,
Yeah.
but that really kind of opened my eyes to how antiquated that may be, and what you think might be the
Yeah.
newer idea.
I mean, I'm not sure I would say it's antiquated. Like, I think it serves, I mean, I guess it's actually from antiquity maybe, but it's like not, but I think it serves a purpose. But yeah,
Hmm.
I'm an enemy of debate in many of the contexts in which it's used, I think. And I think that I guess the problem with debate is that I think that people think of debate as like the primary or only way to handle difference or maybe avoidance. So they're like avoidance and debate. And they're like, but I think that so I think debate is great, but I think it's a tool that people use for the wrong purposes in many occasions. And one way that was explained to me, I did a project a few years ago that was like a performance piece. That was one of the things I think I left out when I described my biography. Was I used to do a lot more sort of art performance kind of work, and I did this performance piece a few years ago with a with a theater company. That was based around the exploration of debate, and I worked with some people who worked on debate, and I worked with this really delightful, smart high school debate coach. And the thing he said, which was really helpful, was he was like, you have to remember that what debate is supposed to be, is it's an antagonistic model through which two people with opposing views fight it out with the goal of persuading a third party. So the idea is like, oh, if I don't know if like X is true or not X is true, one way I might find that out, and it's only one way and it's only one tool, would be to have two people sort of fight that out, and I can sit back and watch them, and at the end sort of decide what I think. And the guy said, so really emphatically, what debate is not supposed to be is a way for two people who have different points of view without a third party observer to explore their difference. That's not what it's meant to be. And that was really helpful for me. So for instance, the goal of debate, so often when people use that term casually and they say, hey, you and I disagree, maybe we should debate this, what they mean is, hey, let's try to change each other's mind. But in a real debate, you would never change the other person's mind. It's actually built into the structure that you wouldn't do that, right? The whole idea is you stay on your side.
Hmm.
So you might or might not think that's an interesting tool or a useful way to teach kids how to do rational thinking, or maybe even a way to to understand an issue better, which I would say it's probably not. Um, but the critical thing about debate is that it's a win-lose proposition. So if you and I disagree with each other and we go into a debate, at the end of the debate, a possible outcome is that um, in this sort of colloquial version of debate, is that there'd be a winner or a loser. So maybe the judge decides, like, oh, Clinton was right and Misha was wrong, and you win and I lose, or the audience decides that. Or if we were to take the more colloquial understanding of debate, where we're going to try to change each other's minds, which never happens, but imagine if it did. If I change my mind, then I win and you lose. But that's a really weird model if you think that, like, if you and I actually have a disagreement and we want to understand the issue better, it's a very weird model to think, oh, if at the end of it you change your mind, you actually learn something, but you're the loser. That's a very weird way to
Hmm.
frame how discourse might work. So I don't know. That's sort of a long-winded way of talking about it. But the real problems are with debate. Again, it's great for some purposes, but some of the problems with debate are it frames things as if there's a one right and one wrong answer. It frames the question primarily antagonistically. There's going to be a winner and loser. It disincentivizes learning during the actual activity, because I'm not going to want to, when you're talking, I'm not going to want to like try to understand your point of view better. I'm just going to be coming up with counter arguments. So I'm not actually going to be sort of trying to absorb what you're saying fully. Um, and the actual rules are that I don't change my mind. So imagine maybe you're actually right and I'm wrong. In a debate, I'm not going to change my mind because that's the nature of debate. The whole point of debate is for me to dig into my side. So it actually encourages digging in.
And it kind of feeds to those confirmation biases, and
Yeah,
you'll omit things and just.
yeah. I will intentionally. Yeah. If there's so in debate. So if you and I are trying to solve a problem together in a genuinely collaborative way, if we're like, hey, so I guess the thing I want to compare debate to is to say like, hey, you and I see things differently, and we might want to productively explore where that difference comes from. And I'm going to assume that like you're a reasonable, at least something like a reasonable, intelligent person, and I'm something like a reasonable, intelligent person. And if we see things differently, you might want to understand why it is. We can really explore that, and we can do that collaboratively. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. Um, and part of what you were saying too is that there's that confirmation bias part, that if I'm in a debate, it's my job. If I know a fact that supports your side, if I'm a debater, what I ought to do is conceal that fact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't help learn. If your goal is learning and knowledge, then both sides, concealing facts from each other isn't going to do that. On the other hand, if we're working collaboratively to say, hey, let's try to understand why we see things differently, then I might be more inclined to say, hey, Clinton, I think maybe one reason why you think this is that this fact, which seems not so important to me, might seem really important to you. Is that right? And you might say, oh, I didn't. You might say, yeah, it is. You might say, oh, I didn't know that fact, or thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, I don't know that you always can, but if you can make that shift from debate, which is a fundamentally antagonistic mode, into this more collaborative mode. And for me, when I teach my classes, the thing we talk about is making that shift from like who's right, which is the debate question, to why do we see things differently, which is a sort of more collaborative exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question you can work on together. I think one of the ideas is where I get to use the video is that if people are working in an antagonistic process, they're sort of working against each other. It's hard to make progress when you're working against each other. It's like maybe you can move like this or you can move like this, but if you're in a collaborative process, you're both working toward the same goal. Two people potentially can get a lot more done if they're working both toward the same goal than if they're working against each other. That's sort of the thought.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope that does to
Yeah.
everybody else too.